Yo, how's it going, everybody? It's MacklinGaming, and excuse my nasally voice. I'm getting over a cold, which seems to happen like every couple of months here in the winter, but it's not too bad, so bear with me. It should be gone by next week. But anyways, we've got a brand new RPG, a long-awaited RPG that dropped yesterday, like regular access. People have been playing it for like a week now, early access, but I just got my hands on it, and I played the first good few hours of this game, and I want to talk about it, and that is Obsidian's Avowed. So Avowed was first shown like E3 2018 or something like that, and it had like this dark cutscene with like your grimoire spell book, and the guy's like casting magic out of it, and it's like, oh, this looks like Skyrim. But then they changed the development. Like, it took so long that the next time they showed it, it was colorful, it was a bright open world, and everyone's like, oh, now it looks like Oblivion. So the comparisons are always gonna be there between Obsidian and Bethesda's games. You know, they've always worked together. Like, Obsidian made Fallout New Vegas when Bethesda made all the other Fallout games, and so they have a very like similar style of games, but some people prefer Obsidian and some people prefer Bethesda. But today I just want to talk about Avowed and try not to compare too much. Sometimes you just can't help it. There's some things that, you know, Avowed does really well, and there's some things that it doesn't do so well. So let's talk about the good and the bad and the ugly of Avowed. So first of all, you start out as this godlike character, and you can create your character, and the godlike marks on your face are what people like recognize you for, and you're like very unique. And some of them look like exposed muscle tissue, some of them look like coral on your face or fungus, you know, like The Last of Us. You can pretty much look like a clicker from The Last of Us if you want. So it's kind of interesting. It's sometimes a little over the top with the godlike facial features, but I picked one that was kind of mellow with the exposed muscle tissue on the cheeks. I thought it looked pretty cool. But as you start out, you are like shipwrecked on the sand, and you have to make your way through this forest and get back to the town, and you got this little character companion with you who's helping you out. And you know, there's really good dialogue as always in Obsidian games. Whenever you're speaking in dialogue with someone, you have like 4 or 5 choices of things to say, and some of them are like attribute based. So if you have enough like perception, you can say a unique dialogue option, or dexterity or might, you can say like an intimidating, you know, dialogue option. And then there's also the dialogue options that pertain to your background character, like your backstory. They let you pick from this list of like what your character went through in their life before they got here into this game. And I picked Court Augur, which is like kind of a mage background, because I wanted to be a mage, a wizard in this game, you know, with a little bit of also archery. I decided to go with like ranged and stealth playthrough, but definitely wanted to be a mage. So I picked Court Augur, and it gives you, you know, those unique dialogue options, and I'm sure it does for all the other ones as well if you choose, you know, a different backstory. So once you go through the first linear portion of the game, you get to this town, and there's a bunch of NPCs there that'll give you quests and tell you what to do next. And this is the first time I started to realize like one of the negatives about the game, which is the NPCs are all pretty much static. And it was an interesting thing I heard. I think Mr. Matty Plays said the game was originally designed to almost be like a co-op MMO game, maybe. So like the quest givers and the NPCs just like stood there. There's no one in this game that is walking around like doing their own tasks, going about their day, you know, in an organic way. And once you notice that, it's hard to unsee it. And it's like, oh, it's kind of a little flat every time you enter like a big town or city. No one's moving around, you know? So that's a weird little thing. I don't know if they can fix that. I don't know if that can be an update. It's like, oh, we've totally rehauled the NPC AI, and now everyone's like got tasks to do, and they're walking around about their day. So it doesn't really feel like a living, breathing city or town. You know, another thing to notice while I'm talking about a little bit of the negatives of the game, and I'll get into the positives after that, but the game is not as interactable like with objects as well. Like the NPCs or one thing, but then like the objects in the world, like you can break some crates and get some loot from them, right? But you can't like pick up any glass off a table, or if you swing your sword across a table, you're not going to knock over all the plates and the barrels and the glasses and stuff. Everything is like static, and you can't even like, it doesn't even make like an impact, you know, on these objects around the world. So maybe they just weren't going for that, like pick up everything and like stash 1,000 potatoes into a spaceship, you know, like Bethesda wanted to do in Starfield or whatever. You know, Bethesda's creation engine always gave you that ability to pick up any object and like move them around and do whatever you want with like all the little things in the game that made it feel so realistic. But Avowed just doesn't have that going on. And, you know, if that's a big deal to you, it kind of sucks. But to me, it's not a huge deal. I can still enjoy the game because of all the positives in this game, which I'm going to get to now. And that is, once you get out into the open world, like the wilderness, the game is really fun to explore. This is a A-tier exploration game. So you get out into the open world, you're in the forest, you see like an enemy camp, and the enemies are all like dancing around, these little like lizard people, and you can sneak up on them in the grass and you can attack them. And then once you're done doing that, you look around and there's like ruins off to the side, like near this river. And then it's like, oh, I'm attracted to that, I'm just gonna go check out these ruins. And then there's a cave, you know, after that. So the exploration of the open world, like the layout of the map, is really enticing and encouraging for you to explore. Like it encourages you to go around to like each of the next new little locations on the map. And they're not all like really marked, you know, the way like a Ubisoft game would, or like Skyrim, like every little cave and ruin has its own little marker on the map. At least I didn't realize that when I was playing. It's just organically like designed, I feel like, and handcrafted. So it's a really nice open world, especially just this, I'm talking about the intro of the game, like the first big map that you get in the game, the beginning area. So exploration's really good. What about the combat? You know, I tried, like I said, bow and arrow and magic. I had like a spell book or a grimoire in one hand and a wand in the other hand. And a lot of people saw this, like last year they saw one of the trailers, one of the gameplay trailers for Avowed, and it didn't look great in terms of like, you know, when you attack an enemy, how do they react? Do they stagger? You know, when they get hit, do they like move to the side? Like it didn't look like they were doing a good job there, but I think they heard that feedback and definitely improved on that, because I noticed that now when I'm playing, you can definitely stagger an enemy, and if you hit them one way, they'll like move off to the side, you know. So it's definitely better. It doesn't bother me at all. You know, the combat is great. I enjoy it. You've got this stamina bar, so like even every single attack you do takes stamina, even from a wand or a bow and arrow shot. And then you also dodge. You have a dodge option, and that takes stamina as well. So you have to like strategically manage your stamina, you know. And like sometimes if you have like too much heavy armor on, your stamina goes down and you don't have as much, so you got to kind of just be like a big stalwart and attack, but you can't dodge as much, right? But I'm trying to play a dexterity / mage build, so I want to be dodging around, have a lot of stamina, and because of that I have to wear light armor, you know, or just robes. But right now I'm in some light armor, which I think is a nice middle ground. It gives you some damage reduction, but also doesn't take away too much of your stamina and your essence. So essence is like your magic meter, like your mana bar, you know. So with the wizard, you have spells in the wand, which are just kind of unlimited. You can just attack, and it doesn't drain anything. But in the grimoire, in the spell book, you know, when you select a spell to use, it drains your essence meter. So you have to make sure you always have enough essence and you don't just spam your spells out of the book all game long. So there's a bunch of little items, and like there's a bunch of plants and herbs that replenish your health and your essence, which I really like. They're actually beneficial. Like if you are low on essence or you're low on health and you go up and you find like this certain fruit or a plant in the ground, it'll replenish your essence in your health pretty pretty drastically. So it's not just like the tiniest bit. Sometimes you can find like roasted meat and it'll fill your health bar up like completely, at least in the beginning of the game. And there's also a perk that gives you the option to have like food and plants and herbs like replenish your health in your essence even more. So the consumables in the game are actually really beneficial. I suggest you just hoard a bunch of like plants and herbs and meat and stuff in the early game to make sure you can top off your health and your essence. So I spoke a little bit about the perk tree. It's a big tree with like all the different classes, you know, some of them you're not going to use too much, but like I'm doing again, like an archer, or I think they call it a ranger, and a mage or a wizard. If you go to the warrior, I think they call it a warrior perk tree, there's definitely a couple of perks in there that I'm going to choose, even though I'm not playing that build. So you want to look around. There might be some helpful little perks. Like one of them is more health and carrying capacity. So I definitely wanted to choose like at least one perk out of that, and, you know, put the rest into my wizard or my ranger perk trees. And you also have a companion with you. His name's Kai, and he's voiced by Garrus from Mass Effect. So that to me is like nostalgic and like comforting to have him around, because you just recognize Garrus's voice anywhere. And he's your companion, which, you know, Obsidian does really well with companions. He's there fighting for you, and he has his own perk tree. You can buff him up with like new abilities and new skills and stuff. So he's very useful in the game where, you know, some of the enemies at first are really easy, but even in the opening region of the map, you can find some enemies that are like overpowered. They have like skulls next to their name, like 3 skulls, and that means they're going to be like over your level, very strong and difficult to defeat. So you have to be strategic, and you have to make sure you use your companion wisely. You can command him to do things, and so there's a lot going on in this game that I really like out in the combat, in the open world aspect of the game, and as well as the, you know, RPG building aspect, the perk trees and stuff. So one of the last things I want to talk about is the loot system. I think it can be improved, but so far you have like ordinary items, like a common wand or a common bow, and then you can upgrade that if you find enough like loot, like branches and pelts, these upgradable resources around the world. You just loot off people or enemies, and then you can upgrade your weapons, and there's like a long, you know, upgrade path all the way up, like fine, quality, excellent, legendary. So you can make like a common wand into a legendary wand. But then there's unique weapons and armor, which are already like a step above any ordinary, you know, weapon or armor that you can pick up, and they have like very unique perks to them built in, and you can like enchant them and things like that and upgrade those as well. So it seems like at one point in the game you're going to get to a point where all the common weapons, like you're just going to ignore them. You don't want to loot any of them. You're just going to look for unique weapons and armor. So I think they have to do something there to make it still useful, where you can pick up, you know, some weapons and armor that aren't just like the lowest tier, like common armor. So you got to make it to where it's like somewhere in the middle, like excellent or epic, you know, not just like unique, legendary, base, common. So they're like, I feel like the loot is too far apart in terms of quality. So you're just going to skip over a lot of stuff looking for those unique items. But other than that, I'm having a fun time with the game. It's not going to be the most immersive, interactable RPG, you know, like Breath of the Wild. You're not going to be able to take your arrow and put it over some fire, and then you have a fire arrow. They don't use physics that way. But just exploring the map and getting into the combat is really fun. It's a fun little gameplay loop, and you have your quests to do, and there's some really good dialogue, some funny writing. So all in all, in my first few hours of the game, first impressions, I'm at like a high B+ for this game, Avowed. You know, I didn't know what it would be like after 7 or 8 years of development, but I'm happy. I'm having fun with it. I don't think it's going to be a life-changing game, but it's definitely an enjoyable RPG. If you have Game Pass, I would say pick it up, start playing it, and see what you think about it. It's not going to be a 100-hour game. I think it's going to be like 50-hour game. So that's it for me with Avowed. Let me know what you guys think about it. Are you playing it? Are you having a good time, or do you think it's trash? One more thing I forgot to mention, my game has crashed a couple of times, so I'm playing on PC through Game Pass, and that's another thing they need to fix, is it's crashing. So I'm sure they will, you know, update the game and make some improvements here. These are just my impressions off the first update of the game, so it's only going to get better from here. So let me know what you guys think, and if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Peace.